Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is David Schlotthauer here on April 10th, 2023, talking about the latest ENSO recent evaluation, current status, and predictions. How is El Nino panning out as far as it goes, and how will this impact your upcoming Atlantic and Pacific hurricane season? And what this means for next winter. So, of course, this is newly released by NOAA, or the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, and is already prepared by the Climate Prediction Center and the National Centers on Environmental Prediction as of April the 10th, 2023. These again are updated once a week on Monday. So let's take a look at what we got going on first. So our summary is, of course, we have a final La Nina advisory that does continue to impact the central and eastern Pacific. There are signs that there's another strong Kelvin wave that is on its way into the eastern Pacific, and this will soon trigger another huge warming event in the central and eastern Pacific in the next 1 to 3 weeks, and the trade winds will slacken. We're going to start seeing pressure oscillation differences taking place because of that. So right now, as of this video, we are seeing neutral conditions that are being observed as we speak, okay? And neutral conditions are expected through the northern hemisphere spring and into early summer of 2023, and there's already early signs we are gonna have El Nino conditions, possibly even before summer even ends, as early as August or even September, okay? So keep that in mind. We're seeing a huge pattern change here. We've been in La Nina for like 4 years. Finally, things are beginning to change for the warmer side. For the people that have been in droughts for a while, well, it looks like we're going to have more rainfall for those areas, which is nice to see. So here's our recent evaluation of the equatorial Pacific sea surface temperature departures. This is in Celsius. And so I want to make this as simple as I can possible, is that what you're looking at here on the right side is a timeline of how sea surface temperatures have evolved since last year at this time. So remember, this is mid-April, way up here on the Mercator projection map. Here is your timeline in last summer of 2022. So we can see how sea surface temperatures have evolved. We thought maybe an El Nino may be trying to develop here by August and September. It didn't last too long. We went right back into La Nina as early as October and November and December, with sea surface temperatures that were roughly between 0.5 degree to about 1.5 degrees Celsius below the long-term average. These are anomaly departures, okay? And this is where all the warm water has been all the way across the western Pacific into Indonesia and Australia. Now, since February, we have had a really big uptick in sea surface temperatures, now near average to above average in the long term since mid-February into March and April. Still some cooler anomalies, though, still lingering around in the central Pacific near the international date line, but that is soon going to be changing. As we can see here, the recent frame does indicate some warming has been taking place, and this is going to be interesting to see how this is all going to evolve when we look back at this each week progressing. And you can look back at my other videos and you can see how this all has progressed. But we are no longer in a La Nina. We're now in a neutral pattern, and it looks like now we're starting to see signs of development of an El Nino. Not just a weak El Nino, possibly a strong one for the summertime into the fall. And this would really, or will likely, impact the Atlantic hurricane season significantly, and will really bolster the Pacific hurricane season and the Western typhoon season pretty significantly. So the latest evolution here of sea surface temperatures is as such very significant warming, especially in the El Nino 1+2 region, almost 3 Celsius above the long-term average. And to you all that are listening to me speaking all this information, 2.7 to you may not seem like a big deal, right? It is a huge deal because it is in a pretty wide area. So just think about this, okay? Think about that you have a pool, a swimming pool that is, say, 2,000 feet, or 2,000 miles, I should say, from end to end. All right, you warm up half the pool with 32 degrees Celsius of water, for an example. Like, that's low to mid 90s, right? And the other portion of the pool, the western Pacific of the pool, is much cooler than average, right? So you have sea surface temperatures in the low to mid 80s. That might not seem like a lot, but when you get warmer water on one half of the Pacific and cooler water in the other half, it changes the pressure patterns in the Pacific. What that does is that slackens the trade winds. So when you have warmer than normal in the eastern Pacific and you have cooler than normal water in the western Pacific, or near average, it doesn't have to be below average necessarily, you change the circulation. The jet stream, or the upper level jet, is not blowing from the west, so to speak, over the eastern Pacific, and instead is blowing out of the east. That changes your circulation. I'll explain more on that in just a little bit. Okay, so long story short, it is very warm in the 1+2 region. It is getting there in the El Nino 3.4 region. It's having a hard time warming up. Near in the neutral pattern right now. The El Nino 3.4 right now is at around 0.3 degrees Celsius above normal. So kind of, in simple terms, we are no longer seeing negative kind of departures here. No negative symbol. These are all neutral or above, which means we are in a certain neutral pattern as we speak. And that's what this is reflecting very well. All right, also the graph here illustrates the El Nino 3.4 region runs roughly from about 160 degrees, or about 170 degrees west longitude all the way to 120 degrees west longitude, versus the El Nino 3 region goes from 150 west to 90 west, and then the El Nino 4 region runs roughly about 160, no wait, I got that confused. You get the idea. You get the idea, okay? Look at the graphic here and you can see what this actually means, okay? But right now, big warming in the 1+2 region. That is very important of what's to come. So over the last 4 weeks, there's been some significant warming in the eastern Pacific. That's definitely for sure. And this is well reflected. This is just a Mercator projection showing you the whole globe of sea surface temperatures. We'll look at that a little closer in my next PowerPoint slides here. Okay, towards kind of the end of the video. In the last 4 weeks, sea surface temperatures again have warmed up pretty significantly here in the eastern Pacific. And we are starting to see more warming take place. All right, so as far as the subsurface sea surface temperatures go, they are definitely above normal. There's no La Nina in the subsurface, so that is below the surface of the ocean, right? So here's your surface. You're diving deep, you're a scuba diver, and you're finding that waters are warmer than average below the skin of the ocean, and that's what this reflects. Definitely a huge warming event is still ongoing right now, almost a degree Celsius above normal as far as how deep those waters actually are, how warm they are. Again, because when you have subsurface temperatures that are very warmer than average, that means El Nino is likely to develop. Not necessarily, but it usually means that. So, of course, this has changed dramatically, big time. February the 12th, we were thinking that maybe a La Nina could kind of hang around for a little bit, right? And then all of a sudden, we started to see some warming take place. More significant warming into March 14th, March 29th, big time warming, and that still continues of this day. So a huge flipperoo as far as sea surface temperatures go in the subsurface, and this is going to help negotiate and help entice El Nino to really intensify. Just letting you all know, if you guys are wondering about this, El Nino is not a weather system. All right, it is not like a cold, low-pressure system or a hurricane by any means. It is a global climatological phenomenon. All right, El Nino changes our weather pattern on a global scale. It impacts people indirectly than say directly. All right, hopefully that clears everything up. It is not a weather system. I don't want you all to think, oh, El Nino's a weather system. It's gonna bring hurricanes. Well, to other places it will. All right, so of course the MJO can significantly impact and intensify or de-intensify El Nino in short terms. Right now we're seeing another strong Kelvin wave that is rapidly moving eastward here, and it is going to be interesting to see how this will evolve with El Nino. Does it help to give it another boost? Does it make El Nino stronger? We will have to wait and see, but we're already starting to see a huge warming event in the Eastern Pacific in the last few days or so because of trade winds have slackened again because of this upward or upwelling Kelvin wave, or no, wait, downwelling Kelvin wave. That's the warmer waters and the reds that you see on your screen. However, this has not been coincidental with the arrival with a slackening of the trade winds yet. The trade winds have been somewhat stronger than normal since mid-March already. We have seen a reduction in those trade winds in the Eastern Pacific, so roughly about 120 degrees west to about 80 west. We have also seen stronger than normal westward propagating winds in the far western Pacific. And it does look like we'll see if this actually mixes eastward with time. And when it does, we're going to start seeing huge warming. And I do see that happening probably by the end of April into early March. That's what or not early March, early May. There we go. What am I thinking? We're done with March already. Well, March is next year, so at least I'm getting somewhere with this. So during most of the period, anomalous upward and downwelling atmospheric circulations have been evident. So the greens are upward motion in the atmosphere, so that's the MJO or Madden-Julian oscillation. The brown colors indicate downwelling, so air is sinking. The suppressive thunderstorm phase. We're not seeing a lot of thunderstorms. We're seeing a lot of trade winds, a lot of eastward wind bursts of winds that go on, which helps suppress this. Drier air too. So right now we're starting to see another MJO impulse propagating its way eastward fairly quickly here, and this again will likely slacken the trade wind significantly, and at times we might see west wind bursts, so winds that blow from the west to the east and help to kickstart El Nino quite significantly. All right, so we're gonna just kind of huddle down this really quickly. So as of they finally filled in their box, and it is a neutral right now. Cold ENSO or a cold neutral, negative 0.4 Celsius right now. We're gonna see this really transition quickly. I'm imagining the next box, because that was negative 7,654. I'm guessing the next box will probably have 0.0 in it. Okay, that will come out in early May, of course, when they update this on a monthly basis. And these are 3 intergressional season means that we have here. So as of the latest box, we are no longer in a La Nina anymore. Okay, we are in a neutral phase at this time. So latest forecasts do call that El Nino has a 60 to 65% of developing in the late summer, early fall period, with neutral conditions likely to persist through mid to late spring, early summer, with very little in the way of chances of La Nina returning. In fact, La Nina is less than 2% of developing in the next couple of months, which really says it all that La Nina isn't coming back anymore anytime soon. In fact, the chances are less than 10% or about 5% through the entire next 12 months. So no chances of La Nina coming back right now. Okay, so I'm going to skip this. This might be a little confusing and might be daunting to some because some of the models here, of course, are not strongly confident that there's going to be a strong El Nino. I'm seeing it developing already in the subsurface, so we're going to kind of move on down and look at our next slide here. This is from the National Centers of Environmental Prediction, this climate forecasting system version 2 model, and this shows us what sea surface temperatures are going to be doing in the next, say, 6+ months from now. So, of course, we are here, so X marks the spot. So if you think about it, if you're at a complex or if you are at a shopping mall, you see the sign, you are here. Well, we are here in April. Okay, so to speak, somewhere right in here. We're neutral, but guess what? doesn't last very long. X marks the spot is going to probably end up going up here eventually. And right now, some of the models want 2.5 to about 1.5 to 2 Celsius above normal. And remember, that doesn't seem like a lot, but that is a 3-month average. Okay, that is significant. And embedded within that, we might get higher anomalies, maybe like 4 or 5 Celsius, which what the CFS actually indicates in their monthly projections. So of course, we're also looking at another way of seeing this is through our an inertial or initial forecasting as of a 10-day spell, or about 10 days. And so we're looking at basically the initial conditions, and these are 3-month overriding forecasts that I like to look at, and this kind of helps me project what is El Nino going to do, or where are we at, So we can see here in mid to late March, this is where our sea surface temperatures were going to be, and this is where they were going to head at the time, okay? So if you remember that video a few weeks ago, we kind of showed you this, and it was showing 1.5 to 2 Celsius, all right? So not a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a moderate to strong El Nino, right? Or it could be a strong to very strong El Nino, in other words. But look what has happened. We look at March 21st through the 30th with their initial forecast. It has cooled off a little bit here, but still it wants some pretty intense warming by, say, August, September, possibly by late fall, early winter, where we have 2 Celsius by October through December. The 3-month mean forecast calls for that. And now look at this. It even has gone up higher, now 2.2 Celsius for October, November, December. That would rival or come awfully close to the El Nino of 2015 and 16, when that had an average 3-month mean sea surface temperature of about 2.3 Celsius. So this is 2.2, so it's right up there. It's not far behind. And so we got to see on how this occurs, because, man, this is some pretty significant warming just between April all the way through October, basically through April, even through July and August. So if this is true, if the models hold up to this, this could be a really big El Nino for late fall, early winter, into much of the winter months, and this could really impact the global weather pattern circulation. Areas that typically see a lot of rain, like the Indian monsoon, may not have much of one this year, versus other areas that typically have dry weather, like California during La Nina periods, usually are going to have a lot more rain and flood concerns. So just to show you, areas that are typically dry will be unusually wet during El Ninos. Areas that are typically wet will be unusually very dry, like Australia, okay? So this is a look now at the Southern Oscillation Index, and this is basically the pressure differences between Indonesia, India, and Tahiti in the Central and Eastern Pacific. So there's 2 locations that the pressures are measured. All right, so I know this is a very hard map to show you all, but here is Darwin, Australia, right there. See my dot? I hope you all can see that with this map. And then over here is Tahiti, somewhere over here, okay? So that's kind of where it actually is at. I believe if my bearings are correct, maybe it's down here somewhere, but you get the idea. So Tahiti is over here, Darwin is over here, okay? And the Southern Oscillation Index has an index. Basically, between these 2 locations, is the pressure higher over here? Is it lower than normal over here? Then your index will be positive. If it's higher over Australia than normal and lower than average over Tahiti, which is in the Central Pacific, then your pressures are, or your index is negative. All right, so we'll get back to this in just a second and what that means. So right now, the latest contribution is pretty much in the neutral. We went positive very significantly. That's why the trade winds were very strong a few days ago. They're weakening now because the index is becoming more neutralized, okay? We went up to 33.74. This is not a pressure actual number that you're seeing. This is just an index, okay? Just kind of how strong is it? The higher the index, stronger the positive is. So we can see the pressure over Tahiti was 1,014 millibars on April 8th, and it was 1,007 millibars over Darwin, Australia. So that is a huge difference in pressure, almost 10 millibars between those two locations. Right now, things have kind of really relaxed a little bit. The index is now 3 millibars in difference, which has contributed to 5.55 on their daily contribution. 30-day average is still in negative, and our 90-day average has come up a little bit, but still roughly just below La Nina territory. You can see how this all has changed since January all the way through March. We were at 11, 10 in February, now negative 0.78, 1.78 that is, which is, again, a huge flip from what we had before. So things are headed into the neutral stage at this given time. Okay, so now to my favorite part. So let's just pretend La Nina conditions did exist, okay? This would be kind of a La Nina setup where you have higher than normal pressure in a large area in the eastern and central Pacific. You get lower than normal pressure over Indonesia, over Australia, and even over the Indian Ocean. It's usually lower than average, right? But what's going to happen here, and again, this is the current forecast by the GFS on the 12Z run, is that the pattern could flip. Roughly in 200 hours now, we could go into the negative territory here with below average heights and below average air pressures over Central and Eastern Pacific, with higher than normal pressures over Indonesia and basically Australia, including for India. What this is going to do is there's going to be a lot of west wind bursts that are going to propagate over the 180-degree international dateline area into the Eastern Pacific. And this is going to kickstart another strong Kelvin wave, which most of the models are beginning to indicate. Speaking of that, here's the Holmover diagram. This is basically a Mercator projection. No, Earth is not flat, folks. Please agree with me on that, okay? Earth is round. But the cool thing is we can stretch Earth out on images like this, and we can make a Mercator projection map. So this is basically from Africa all the way to Africa again, okay? And this is in the Eastern Pacific, Central Pacific, Western Pacific, Indonesia, and India, okay? Hopefully that kind of clears the confusion up. So we can see here areas in red. So this line demarcates the current, the initial forecast based on the Euro model, and what the Euro model thinks what might happen in the future. So we can see these orange and red colors, a indication that the trade winds are going to fall apart. They're going to falter again. I drew a glove. Lovely. I think I did good at kind of drawing that up. So we can see here between April 10th and April 20th, the Euro model thinks that the trade winds will relax a lot. We're going to see a reversal in those trade winds, and these areas in red indicate west wind bursts. What this means is it allows El Nino to develop. And yeah, it gets a little deep here. The trade winds are very weak all the way up until 120 degrees west at times in longitude. That is over here in the central and even in the Eastern Pacific, okay? And this is going to really have an impact on how El Nino is going to pan out. Also, it gets even further later on in the period, possibly almost basically into the Eastern Pacific. So this whole equatorial Pacific could have very weak trade winds by the 20th of April, which would mean a lot of downwelling in the Eastern Pacific and a lot of upwelling of warmer water in the Western Pacific. On the GFS model also indicates this really strong west wind bursts. We have some brighter pink colors which indicate very strong west wind bursts, perhaps 20 to 40 miles an hour. So that's really going to, again, help to upwell a lot of this warmer water. Okay, and it's going to downwell a lot of nutrient water over Peru. So this is a big deal right here. We'll see how this all evolves as this heads eastward with time with the MJO. And usually when it coincides with that, we can get a lot of significant warming. All right, this video is already 24 minutes. Oh my gosh, one of the longer videos that I have ever had on my channel. Okay, so of course, El Nino is developing quickly here. Look at the sea surface temperature, self-explanatory, 3+ Celsius already off the Peru coast. Okay, in the Central Pacific, we are roughly about neutral to slightly above normal. The Gulf of Mexico is really warm. The Atlantic, look at that, right off the Cabo Verde Islands of Africa, really warm, anywhere between 2 and 3 Celsius above the long-term average, climatological speaking. So this is going to be really interesting to see how this is all going to impact the Atlantic hurricane season. One thing's for sure, the Pacific is going to have a mighty busy season ahead, like it always does during El Ninos, because, of course, the shear is weaker over here during El Ninos. You get a lot of upward motion that focuses. We get stronger than normal hurricanes. The numbers are higher than normal. So get ready, folks. If you're in the Central America area, like Mexico here, portions of North America, you might have more landfalls than usual, including for Hawaii. Definitely want to be on guard for a very busy Atlantic or Pacific hurricane season. The Atlantic hurricane season looks to be quieter than normal, below average, I do predict. I predict right now 8 to 12 named storms. Okay, that's my forecast. I am not changing the forecast much on that. So if you all are wondering, how's this Atlantic hurricane season going to be? To be below average. I don't see a crazy season at all. In fact, there are some early guidance on the models that the Saharan dust could be out of control this year like it was last year, and that could really have an impact on how this is all going to evolve and open up for the early part of the Atlantic hurricane season. So first of all, big warming has taken place over the Central and Eastern Pacific in the last 7 days. That's what this indicates. A lot of the red colors here. There's been some warming in the main development region. Serious warming over the northeastern portion of the Gulf of Mexico. It hasn't warmed up much, though, over the Caribbean, and that's probably going to be the case throughout the rest of the season. Or it's going to warm up a little bit, but not super significantly. All right, so really quickly, the CFS total accumulated precipitation mean anomaly for August, September, and October does call for a below average season of hurricanes or tropical cyclones. That's kind of the yellow that you see on your screen. This does not mean you will, but there's less impetus that you're going to have a lot of named storms this year. Maybe one, at least, maybe two, but it can be very dormant through the Caribbean because of the shear, because of El Nino that's going to develop. Maybe something that could brew in the northern Gulf of Mexico, maybe out here in the main development region, but doesn't look as crazy as it could like it was in 2020 when a lot of this was all green thanks to strong La Nina in the Eastern Pacific. The opposite has kind of developed here, but it's still a very active West African monsoon season. All right, and we'll see how that, again, plays out. But right now, I am calling for 8 to 12 named storms. 8 to 12 named storms for the Atlantic hurricane season. A really a below average season, I do project. Okay, the European for August, September, October is very similar. Below average in the Caribbean, really daunting and dry likely for central and, for the central main development region. It just doesn't really scream out to me that the Atlantic hurricane season is going to really be busy this year. Other people, other social media outlets are already saying that this is going to be a very busy Atlantic hurricane season because they want to scare people. But in my opinion, I don't think it's going to be all that busy. I could be wrong, though. That's why we do these once a week. All right, well, that is gonna kind of close off this presentation, folks. I hope you enjoyed it a lot. Oh my gosh, it's almost 29 minutes long. I try to make these as short as I can, but when there's a lot of information, I have to digest through it very detailed. Okay, but anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Share, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you back here tomorrow with more weather content. But if you're looking for these videos in particular, I will have another ENSO update next Monday, April the 17th. Okay, so mark your calendar, April the 17th at around 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I will have another ENSO forecast update. Don't want to miss that one. All right, until next time, see you tomorrow.